I'm reminded of a particular line from William Blake, which also gave rise to the name of a very famous book by Aldous Huxley called Doors of Perception. Blake says, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear as it is, infinite. So it's not different from what Wordsworth is hinting at here, seeing into the life of things, seeing in an infinite way. It's only when we are separated from other beings, other life forms, it's only when we do not have any idea about the power of harmony, we labor under the misapprehension that everything is finite, life is finite. But once we get access to that higher domain, we realize that it's just the beginning, it's just a door to a greater dimension, which is infinite, which is incalculable, which is mysterious. But this mystery does not burden you with unintelligibility, with confusion. This sense of mystery liberates you. That serene and blessed mood in which the affections gently lead us on, the affections that we have for nature, the affections that nature has for us, lead us on gently to a serene and blessed mood. This will live in us, this will stay until the breath of this corporeal frame and even the motion of our human blood almost suspended, we are laid asleep in body and become a living soul. So this will stay until the day we die. Now it's only the body that is living, but after we die, we will be transformed into a living soul. While with an eye made quiet by the power of harmony, the deep power of joy, we see into the life of things. Harmony is empowering, disharmony is not. If this be but a vain belief, yet oh, how often darkness and amid the many shapes of joyless daylight, when the fretful stir, unprofitable, and the fever of the world have hung upon the beatings of my heart, how often, Spirit, have I turned to thee, O sylvan Wye, thou wanderer through the woods, how often has my spirit turned to thee. So he is addressing the river Wye, beside which he receives enormous peace of mind, and he is referring to a time of darkness in his life, sad days, sorrowful days, days of loneliness and solitude, when the act of remembering the Wye filled his heart with joy. He is talking about how often, Spirit, have I turned to thee, O sylvan Wye, thou wanderer through the woods, how oft has my spirit turned to thee. Notice how Wordsworth addresses the river as if the river is a person. O sylvan Wye, it is sylvan because it passes through the woods, passes through the forests. How often has my spirit turned to thee. So the memory of the river, the memory of standing beside the river, its company has given the poet enormous consolation, and it has kept him company in lonely times. A truth that has constituted my way of being. How often darkness and amid the many shapes of joyless daylight, when the fretful stir unprofitable. Notice that he compares the shapes that he spent in joyless daylight amid the many shapes, or the shapes that surrounded him in his lonely days or lonely times. Compare those shapes with the shapes of nature that he finds in this particular place, Tintern Abbey, beside the river Wye. In times of crisis, in times of loneliness, were insubstantial, and they were also multiple, they were innumerable perhaps. When the fretful stir, unprofitable, and the fever of the world, the fret and the fever of the world have hung upon the beatings of my heart. The fretful stir, the unprofitable and fretful stir, referring to the din of the outside world, din of the world that is far removed from nature, and the fever that it causes. And all this experience of, let's say, the urban experience of daily busyness, hectic schedules, often loneliness, these experiences have hung upon the beatings of my heart. How often, Spirit, have I turned to thee. So when I was lonely, when I was crushed under the burden of city existence, urban life, I have often turned to you, O sylvan Wye. Okay. And now with gleams of half extinguished thought, with many recognitions dim and faint, and somewhat of a sad perplexity, the picture of the mind revives again. And when he uses the phrase, and now, he is referring to the present moment, as if in the previous stanza we were taken back to the past. In a cinematic flashback, we were taken back to the past, the intervening years when he was pent up in a city life, when he was living in a city perhaps away from nature, and how he felt. So the previous stanza is a description of that. It uses a lot of adjectives which signify his negative existence, sad, sorrowful existence, like fretful, unprofitable, fever, joyless, darkness. Adjectives which he counters in the next stanza when he says, and now with gleams of half extinguished thought, with many recognitions dim and faint, and somewhat of a sad perplexity, the picture of the mind revives again. So after a long time, after 5 years, I have come back to this place. I can still remember the times spent away from this place, and it's a sad remembrance. It comes with a sad perplexity of the mind. But now that I am here, the picture of the mind revives again. Picture of the mind. This phrase captures the whole point. When Wordsworth refers to the phrase picture of the mind, he is comparing mind with a device that can store memories, and a device through which those memories can be revived. So he is practically talking about the camera, isn't he? Although the camera was not invented in his time, right? There was a time when the camera was not invented and people only had their memories or the ability to remember. The picture of the mind, that is to say, the impressions that memory has collected and imprinted on the mind, picture of the mind is revived again. Now that he has come in contact with nature again after 5 years, now that he has come to this familiar place after 5 long years, the picture of the mind has revived. While here I stand, connect this word here with the word now in the first line. Here and now. He is here and he is here now at this present time. While here I stand, not only with the sense of present pleasure, but with pleasing thoughts that in this moment there is life and food for future years. While here I stand, he is there and he also takes us to that place, and we are as if with Wordsworth at this present moment. And that is exactly why I said that this poem unfolds in the present time, in real time as it were. It's almost like a live telecast of the poet's experiences, of the poet's feelings and emotions. So he does not hold back. The poem itself becomes a device through which either we are transported to that place, or that place is broadcast, or that place comes to us. So there is also a direct connection that is established through words, through images, through poetic language. And Wordsworth describes how he feels. He feels pleasure. There is also pleasure in the realization that how he feels now at this present moment is also going to stay. It is not going to fade, because there is life and food in this present moment for future years. Practically, it's talking about what can be called retrospective memory. I'll come to that. The idea of future years is incalculable. He is referring to the word years. He is referring to the phrase future years. When he uses this phrase, he does so with a sense of indescribability, infinitude or infinity. He does not know how many years are remaining in his life. This phrase opens up his vision to enormous possibilities and enormous, a tract of time. Not enormous perhaps, but it opens up the vision of an incalculable future. Okay, so what is he trying to say? Let's try to understand. Life and food are inseparable, right? Without food, there can be no life. So there is nourishment. It's almost like, it's as if Wordsworth is saying that we need food in order to live. We need to eat food in order to live. When he says this, he means that the body needs food in order to survive. But human beings have other aspects of existence as well. Human beings have souls, and the soul also needs food. So now we can understand what the poem is really about. It is about The idea that we are not only our bodies, we have identities that are metaphysical. Just like he has mentioned, he has referred to the idea that it's only the body which dies and the soul continues to live on. The soul is deathless, it is immortal. But in this life, in order for the soul to be happy, it needs food. And that food, that nourishment is provided by nature. And so I dare to hope, though changed no doubt from what I was when first I came among these hills, when like a roe I bounded o'er the mountains by the sides of the deep rivers and the lonely streams, wherever nature led, more like a man flying from something that he dreads than one who sought the thing he loved. He describes what he was like 5 years ago. He remembers. This is also an act of remembering. He remembers the time when he first arrived at this place. He was like an animal with animal energy, boundless energy. He compares himself in a simile with a roe, an animal, like a roe. He bounded over the mountains by the sides of the deep rivers. You have images that are not only visual but also kinetic, suggesting movement, animal movement. I bounded over the mountains by the sides of the deep rivers and the lonely streams, wherever nature led, more like a man flying from something that he dreads than one who sought the thing he loved. Very important line. When we fly, when we escape, we focus on the word, on the expression escape from. We do not, most of the times, we do not consider where we are going, but we focus on what we are escaping from. If you are going from one place to another, if you are escaping from one place, it also means you are going somewhere, you are going towards something. But that second component, the towards component, is not generally taken into account, it is not considered. And that was also the experience of Wordsworth, because when he came for the first time to this place, he was escaping from a certain kind of life, and nature offered him refuge. But now that he has come back after 5 years, now that he is more mature than before, he has come to this place because he loves it. He is not escaping from anything. He does not feel the need to. He is in love with nature thoroughly, and that is precisely why he has come back to this place. So he is driven not by the need to escape, but love.